Tour de France at Majas. Terrific knowledge of the sport, and he knows every rider without referring to a note. A magnificent commentator. Thank heavens he doesn't work in television.
He's unbelievable. He can talk for hours and hours about cycling. Knows absolutely everything about these guys, and he basically earns a living covering all of the major cycling events in France throughout the year.
Well, there's a lovely picture. This really is a fabulous part of France, out on the west coast. Not very far away, in fact, from the home of Bernard Hinault, five-time winner of the Tour de France. Hinault is here, of course, and very typical Breton housing with the grey slaty roofs and the white painted, those steeply spire churches, and I can guarantee the bars will be absolutely buzzing as the race continues. A bit of pacemaking being done by Wojciech Szymniewski, the Polish man at the front, his teammates here, including his team, I think it's Piatek. They're all up here now. The man is missing his foot. Jalabert is there too.
Jalabert sitting pretty close to the front of the pack. Brookville will sit in the main pack, probably around about 25th place at the moment. He will have a lot of responsibility put onto his shoulders there by the rest of the team, because the fact that they're chasing like this, they really are transferring responsibility to him to finish off the work that they're doing. Jalabert looking very calm and collected at the moment. He's got a World Championship title under his belt. That would be individual time trial, and he would certainly love to try and get himself a victory here in France. There next to him is Paolo Bettini with the green shoulders there from the Italian squad. Bettini's had a magnificent season so far. Davide Rebellin, the other rider in the green there, also a little further back. Italy, I think for the moment, pretty happy having Danilo De Luca in that leading group of riders.
It's been a difficult selection process for the Italians because the sport is so popular in Italy, of course. Everybody, including the selectors, they say what they feel about selection, and the public split over the decision to leave out David Rebellin and instead put in Marco Pantani. Well, he's one of the Ukrainians who's called it a day. Now, Gonchar was the top rider here. This isn't Sergei Gonchar. He's already won the World Time Trial Championship this year. And this is the sort of condition that Vladimir Kuma, who was the last rider, and I think the only rider, to finish for his team in the Tour of Italy, wasn't he?
He was, in fact, and he took out a stage victory, a win at the front of the main field, I should say, just behind a great breakaway by David McKenzie, Australian rider on the Linda McCartney squad. He popped out of the pack there, and nobody really knew who he was at the time, and now he's taken an early shot. Still, the poles on the front, Phil, they really are digging deep, and they're going to have to do something pretty special. They've taken 40 seconds off the advantage of those leaders right now, and still it's a pretty large pack for a World Championship at this stage.
Under the banner again, a gap is coming down, but ever so slowly. Clock counts on, but it was inside with the same 4:01, but I think it's less than that, because the head of that field went under that banner. As another lap is ticked off by the driving of the Polish boys. There's no doubt they've got a plan, and the rest of the race is thanking them very much for taking them all up to the leading group, and they're offering no assistance at all. So every one of these Poles sacrificing his world title for one man. We think we've nailed down the man in the Gimli's foot, because we can't see him, and he must have told his teammates to go and drive the race.
Well, he must feel good. He's had a very good season with a lot of placements in individual single-day World Cup races. He's a magnificent bike rider. I'm not sure that I would rank him as a world title shot, but maybe today he's in a special day, which is why he's asked his team to come forward. And the thing is, they have really missed the boat, the Poles there, because even the French must be pretty happy with having Christophe Moreau in that leading group of riders. All the major nations of the World Championships, the French, the Dutch, and the Belgians have got representatives up there, and of course the Italians too, which is why this situation has developed on the road for Poland. They're going to have to chase, and a 4.5-minute gap is a very difficult one to have to pull back at this stage of the race, because we're only just past half distance, and there won't be too many Poles left with good legs toward the end with a chase like this inside them.
I think as you spoke there, Paul, there's one just blown out and dropped away from the front. He said, that's my lot. I think it was Szymniewski. He's gone to the back now as the rest continue. Well, although our screen a few minutes ago did say 4 minutes, we're going to check now at 3:30, so this chase is working. It's bringing it down to very manageable performance. 19.5 minutes, a very consistent lap. Remember when the break went, the pace shot up, it went through in just over 18 minutes, but they've regulated now at around 19.5, 19.40 for the 14.1 kilometre.
Just looking at the long line of high riders there, you can feel the pain and the speed of this main field. But you know, must be that they are working to Scrupp this year, because Scrupp has had a magnificent season in the one-day classics. Finished fourth in Milan-San Remo back in March, followed that up with a ninth place in the Tour of Flanders, eighth in the Amstel Gold Race. So he's always been looking to put in a good performance. In fact, we did see quite a lot of him at the front of the main cap in the Olympic Games, which wasn't too long ago in Sydney, but certainly under slightly different climatic conditions.
I've been doing this book for a long time because I used to organise the British Milk Race for many years. The race director of that for 21 years. In fact, Slovenia was one of the stars of the milk race. You have to go right. Look at this ball, an attack now by the French. All others is going back to the cars and had a flat time.
The problem that's Jalabert, who is down there, is being picked back into the main field, and it may well be that he's had a flat tire. There doesn't seem to be any panic at all there. He's being paced back into the race by one of his teammates, and there's a Dutchman just sitting on the back now for the ride.
Well, we've got the puncture. Early is better than later. Jalabert, though, is returning to the fold in many ways here to represent his country, because he had a little fallout over the last couple of years on the anti-doping policy and the exterior testing of riders, the fact that he's moved to live in Switzerland away from the French, rides for the Spanish team, etc. Lost a lot of favour amongst the officials, but they're letting him back in now, and he would love a result, because at the end of the year he apparently is going to leave Onse, and then he'll be looking to come in to a French team.
He also has a problem that he doesn't have a contract signed at the moment. He actually declared that he wanted to have his contract signed and sealed before he went along to the Olympic Games. Well, that didn't happen at all. And in fact, now he's still getting towards the end of the season without a contract for the coming year.
Tom Luker, I think it is, before he comes over Australia there, just moving on the outside. Only 4 Australians started today. Jay Sweet, the sprinter. Scott Sunderland was rather miffed. He was not selected for the Australian team for the Olympic Games. He appealed that decision but lost. And he's got good form at the moment. Stuart O'Grady is in here, fresh after his crash, not fresh, but since his crash in the Tour de France. He rode in the Olympic Games, but not with any real distinction. And Tom Luker we've just seen.
Francesco Pellegrino just on the left with the green. Laurent Brochard in the middle. Brochard riding very well this year, almost got himself a stage victory at the Vuelta a España not too long ago. Coming into the city of Avila just towards the end. There's got something there in the Australian jersey with the glasses on. He's got very
Just the
comfortable.
number is a surprise at us today, because he's very annoyed about his non-selection for Australia, especially in his own country. The Olympic Games were in the state of New South Wales. He's a New South Welshman. He comes from Kimberley, so he desperately wants to ride those games with difficulties. And he's up here ahead of the race. Well, gets the feeling now that the Polish team are tired, but they are still closing in on the leaders, which are beginning to show signs of gladness. I'm not seeing too many pictures of them, but when we do see them, there are signs of riders getting a little bit tired. The Italian team colours up to the right, with the green socks and the jersey.
Piotr Wadecki on the front, one of the riders of the Moroz team. The only fully fledged international team, Crossover, in a very well-built squad. They take part in many races all over the international circuit, and just now they're riding an excellent race. The Polish team have really got themselves organised today, but they should have had a man in that breakaway, because every other major nation was represented. The tactics of the World Championships are always very strange indeed, because it's always a big battle between France and Italy, and everybody else very often just seems to be along for the ride.
Scored against number 1, last tour winner, riding near the head too, not overdoing it. He's a marked man, of course, now, 1 year on, 9 wins, and a real challenger, recognised by the peloton and for the future. Had this back problem all year, which he hopes to get sorted out as he runs out of this season. Still, of course, a rather exciting and very interesting tour of Lombardy to come, with Andre Schmil now showing the challenge at Eric Zabel for that championship. And Schmil starting today, one of the favourites. Another one started today, by the way, Abraham Olano. He's gone back home to Spain.
He was a little bit surprised at not taking out the win in the individual time trial. He was the number 1 favourite, fresh from the Olympic Games. He felt as if he would have won the event, and he blamed it on bad communication between himself and his manager. But I always thought that if you go out to win a time trial, you have to ride as hard as you can for as long as you can. So I think maybe the form just wasn't there.
And of course, no Andrea Tappi on the Italian squad, and there's no one more disappointed than he after winning the Paris Tours in such fine style. And when you look down the list of riders who have made the Italian squad, you really do have to ask the question of why leave out Andrea Tappi.
Exactly, whether or not he's won a lot of races races this year. It's always a man to be counted on for the team. He's always the kind of rider who will work beautifully as a domestic, and surprisingly enough, they have left him out. And he'll probably be watching this at home now, not very happy, thinking if I'd have been there, I'd have been ripping this race to pieces right now.
Back up with the leaders, that's Jimenez at the back of the race. Well, he was, he's not at the back of the race now. That's Marichal who's come to the back. There's two Spanish riders in this group, enough to keep the worry over the field behind. A rider will be expected to be world champion by the end of the day. That's third from Rabobank squad, sets the pace here at the front. Team Marichal.
Russian rider in there is Lelekin. He's fairly young, 57 years of age. These riders now, Phil, really are realising that the chase is on behind as Marichal leads them up to the end of the lap. In second place, that is Kronk. Christophe Moreau must be feeling quite happy about this race situation. And looking at Danilo De Luca there with the Italian jersey, he doesn't actually seem to be flying all of that well at the moment. He's actually having a hard time staying on the wheel of the man in front of him. So we may well see another change in tactics later on. If the Italians get wind that in fact their man Danilo De Luca is not riding too well, I think they will come to the front as well and start to chase.
Well, I think this is attack time here. They've decided these 9 riders are getting a little bit cumbersome. They know that the Polish train is reducing it, and they're trying to split the field here as they come up this very nasty drag. It'll get worse too as the race goes on, because that is Roger Beauchamp who has got on the train, and third Kronk is tagged on, but there's a few missing now.
It really has split the field. Marichal really put the hammer down, and that has reduced the number of riders. And I think that is not going to be a great move for them, because we've now seen the two Spanish riders there being left behind. The other French rider who was in that break earlier on, Benetton, he is now being slopped to the rear as Christophe Moreau decides to come forward now and accelerate on the slope of this climb. All the French riders must be on a serious high here today, because they are racing on a circuit which in the month of August sees around about 250,000 spectators witnessing the Grand Prix of Plouay. 5 riders now leading the race, but behind the riders from Poland really are doing an excellent job, and they're slowly but surely eating into the advantage of this breakaway.
This is a surprise to the Marichal trying to split the field. He's not a rider of great note. I just wonder what his tactic is. A couple of tours under his belt. He's ridden the last 2 editions and finished both of them rather lowly, but nonetheless, to finish the Tour de France is a tremendous achievement.
The two Spaniards have been caught here. One is Eladio Jimenez, the other is Rafael Diaz Justo. And another rider caught out in that split was the Russian rider Sergei Lelekin. If they can integrate over the top of this climb, they will reform to make a 9-man leading group. But looking back, it looks as if they've already lost around about 20 seconds from the 5 riders who are leading right now.
168 kilometres done. 5 of the original 9 have got clear around the 60-kilometre point. So they've been 100 kilometres together. The 2 Spanish riders are being dispatched backwards. Those 2 is Walter Benetton, the Frenchman, and the Russian rider Lelekin. Marichal was the troublemaker, 27-year-old. He's got 2 wins this year, including finishing second overall in the circuit Franco Belge. Very good result for him, so he's got his form at the right time.
Christophe Moreau decided what his tactic is going to be as we get confirmation of the group there. Although I did say that Danilo De Luca walked under pressure, he's still in this leading group of 5, and so that will take the pressure off the Italian squad behind. Walter Benetton, by the way, in the second group on the road there for France, won the Circuit de l'Orne, which is not too far away from there. It used to be known as the Criterium of Châteaulin, and it was always the great big revenge match after the World Championship, when the World Championships were held in August. So that was a big win for him, and he too is a rider from not very far away from here, from Nantes, and was a member of Jean-René Bernado's Vendée U development squad.
Looking at the back now, 101. Mate Coffin, not one in Gert from earlier. Gert, who was a street skater, that's having too many memories, I think. Gert is now out of it. This is Mate Coffin, who was up in the breakaway. Sits at the back, and it's a good move by the youngster as well.
Christophe Moreau is the strongest rider in the group right now, and it'd be nice to go back to the main field and just see if any of the other teams have decided to come forward, because the news was certainly gone back that the two Spanish riders who were in this group have been left behind, and that will change the whole look of this bike race. Obviously, the Belgians will be fairly happy with the presence of one of their riders in here. But one man on the Belgian squad has actually acted the whole of the end of the season towards this World Championships, and that's Andre Schmiel, recently second in the Paddock Tours World Cup race. He is looking for the big win here, and in fact declined selection for the Olympic Games to concentrate on winning the World Championships.
We come back to Poland to catch up. The Italians are hovering, look, all of them with the green jerseys on. Still 4 Poles in the pace, and no one is assisting them. Pace, though, is registering the fact that they are bringing them all back ever so slowly is the case. But the gap is closing. It should be inside 3.5 minutes at the next time if we go.
It's a bit strange when we're looking at the World Championships and have names like Jan Ulrich, Lance Armstrong and Alex Zuller absent from the starting list. And we're in reflection that the majority of the big names can't hold on to the end of the season. And unfortunately, we have had good World Championships, but maybe not all of the best riders in the world are present at the latter part of the season.
In a couple of years' time, these championships on these dates will be in Canada. Well, I am assured that it's an area where the snow doesn't come that early. Let's hope they're right, and otherwise we will be in trouble. But there is a rumour actually coming out of these championships that they are seriously considering now moving the titles back into the end of the summer season, which will be August to September, where of course they always were. I think it's fair enough now, because the Tour of Spain has been a very successful move from April to September, a race in its own right now, much more interesting than it was, and so I think the change is ready.
Absolutely. Christopher, the larger rider there, but absolutely superbly in the Tour de France, finishing 4th overall, just losing out in the final time trial with his own teammate Massimo Belotti. But Daniel De Luca, having gone through that bad patch, is really being encouraged now by the crowd, and what a magnificent crowd this is through the finishing area, Phil. I would say there are in excess of 350,000 spectators today, and if the weather had been good, they were expecting 500,000.
Well, what's the clock? 7 laps to go. These 5 riders must now be feeling the Polish cold air coming up from behind. These are the 4 that were dropped from that group of 9. Remember, they went away on the 4th circuit. We're now 7 from the end of the 19. And they know they're resigned to the fate now. Shortly, they'll be the first to see the Polish boys close it down.
The final come out of these guys now, and you will know that fairly shortly they will feel the breath of the Polish squad on their backs, because the Poles are doing a magnificent job on the front of the main field, trying to pull this race back together. And the fact that that leading group now has split into 2 groups of 5 and 4, I think we will see the whole race coming back together, but it's going to be a long, hard chase by the Poles. This group now at 4 Phil, just inside 1 minute in arrears of the leading group of 5.
Mora's given up now. Once they've got the top one continuing on, the man will just ride round to the peloton, picks her up to see if then they have to go back into the danger zone. This is the French with all the bags hanging out. But it looks like once tomorrow this. We've got one down, unfortunately, season this year. He's had 2 crashes very early on. Once tomorrow broke his collarbone in the first one, and in fact he was still in the second. But at least he's got himself back into form.
Second group, 4 riders here, the 2 Spaniards on the front there. We have Justo and Eladio Jimenez taking a stage victory in the Vuelta a España. It's certainly regarded by many as one of the great Spanish hopes for the future. Huge turnaround in Spanish cycling, when a few years ago one wouldn't have expected to see the Spanish being so competitive in the one-day World Championship. But since Abraham Arana took their first title in Colombia, and then followed that up last year with a win by Oscar Freire, I think they're fancying their chances today. And Oscar Freire, for me, still has to be a supercharged at the finish, because the circuit is not a circuit for the major climbers, and if it's a group of riders of 25 or 30 left towards the end, then really Oscar Freire has a chance of being one of the rare world champions to take the title twice in a row.
Well, that would be rather nice for Freire, especially after his surprise victory last year. It was a great season that was followed since. De Luca on the left of our picture, a man of quality, I think, and we'll be very happy the way things are going. We're 7 laps, but here's the bunch. Now, are they coming through the start finishing line? If so, the clock will be on them. It's not long since the lead has gone through. They are getting much closer than they were. It was 3.5 minutes, but I think the effort by the Poles has slashed that right down now.
still an awful lot of bike riders left in the event at the moment. The amazing thing about the World Championships is this constant pressure. And there you can see the Spaniards still in about 10th position there, still looking pretty comfortable, pretty happy with the situation. Axel Merckx was still in the main field there, looking quite comfortable. And Gordon McCauley, I think I caught a sign up there, the Kiwi rider. There's two Kiwis in the field here, Wyatt Christian and the other McCauley. And looking down, you can see that...
I think the guy who's got the puzzles is a bit of a fake waiter.
Well, these boys haven't really turned the pedal around with it. It's up behind the pole. There's the gap though. It's a simple one, and maybe held on here. 3:24 it is now, instead of the goal.
It's really got a Polish teammate on, and everybody else at the moment pretty happy just to sit back and allow them to settle all the pacemaking at the front. And it's down at the Gurov, still in the main field, but close of him. There's the other Estonian rider, Jan Persikul. Another man that if the race doesn't toughen up towards the end there. In fact, Andre Schmeel still looking very comfortable. Strange way to eat a bottle, but maybe he's just found a bit of wet drinking.
They'll never get it down, no matter how hard he tries. But Schmil would feel things are under control just now. There's a nice view again of the town of Pune. Just stays on the outskirts. The town itself is full of narrow streets, and you couldn't run a race through there. So they're on the outskirts here. The peloton, still a big one. Speed's on its way. Still working out how they're going to close the gap, because the last time out was 3.5. They've only knocked 7 seconds off this time, and that's not an indication they're going to wipe them out yet. The Poles are going to request some help soon, I think.
54 seconds, that group of 4 is in arrears of the leading group of 5 in the main field, 3.5 minutes behind right now, and all of the pressure feels still coming from that Polish squad. These are the 4 riders fourth in the middle. Walter Benetto is number 25, rides for the Bonjour team. And the 2 Spaniards, they really did get caught out there, here, Justo and Eladio Jimenez. And Sergei Lelekin, well, I think he's just pretty happy to be there, because Lelekin is not a rider on one of the top international teams. In fact, this is the first time I've seen Lelekin racing. And he must be pretty happy to be at the front of the World Championships. A big chance for a rider like him to interest the sponsors and possibly ride into a professional squad for next season.
Well, Benetto there, got round his first Tour de France this year, only a youngster. Another one of the fines, I think, finished 7th first. But the fact wasn't finished. And he seemed to come here, determined to establish at least an impression on the event.
For another team coming to the front now, it may well be red and white for this time. In fact, it's the Danish team that decided to send 1 or 2 riders further forward. They've seen the big pressure that the Poles have been put under and decided now is the time to come forward and help out in the organisation at the front of this pack. And now that we are getting another team interested, it may well be a time that the main group in front will start to get pulled back. The thing about the Danish team is we did see a very impressive Rolf Sorensen a week ago in Paris Tours. It may well be that Rolf is looking for the biggest title of his career. He's won almost every major one-day race that there is on the calendar. He's never been world champion.
This is the dangerous stretch. You've had quite a few little tumbles here, the winning juniors and their squads coming down this section. And the sharp left hand. I think it's Alan Johansson who's on the front. He's a sort of elder statesman now of the Danish riders, but even so, he's a late turning professional, and he is a strong man. So they'll welcome him up the front, and the Poles could do with a break anyway, because they don't know how many have to be chasing off each sport.
It's very difficult for them. This is the technical part of sportsman. So the one thing you don't want to be in 30th or 40th position right now, because you're hanging right onto the wheel of the rider in front of you. There are the 4 riders who were caught in no man's land, so they're just about to get brought back into the fold. So now the race situation will be the 5 leaders with the rest of the main pack together.
Have to swoop round the roundabout, and the 4 riders rounded first on the inside track. There's the field right onto them now, so the field will soon work out. They haven't got them all, they didn't know already. And as I said, who they've caught and who they haven't. There they are, 2 Spanish, the Russian and the Frenchman are back in the fold. There's the other Spanish one.
Well, now that this situation has happened on the road, I think we may well see Spain coming forward as well, because Oscar Pereira must certainly be a serious challenger for the title if they can keep a large group together. And it seems for the moment as if there hasn't been too much devastation in the back of this pack, and it is a very large group. The whistles and the shouts going forward now from the Poles. The Poles realising that Spain now don't have any riders in the front, so they cut off the power. They've sat up, and now I think we will see a change in the front of the main field.
I think you're right. We've now said the little boys have got no excuse now for not giving it down, so if they won't do it, then we won't bother either, and the reaction comes straight away from Spain. That was a good decision by the Polish riders, otherwise these boys would have tanked them all the way to the finish and then taken the medals. Now Spain go out on the attack.
Well, that's a bit strange. Spain there not really wanting to come to the front and organise it, Jason, deciding to launch a man off the front. Not a very sensible move at this stage in the game, because those riders are still more than 2.5 minutes in front, and trying to ride across a gap like that at the World Championship is basically a waste of energy.
Well, there's a tall boy who comes to mind is Martin Verdigero, who is on the attack here, and the riders trying to reorganise themselves to see if they can get the counter-action going. Remember, there's still 5 riders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds ahead.
This is a tough course. You can actually see, looking at the pavement out there as well, that it's not a smooth surface here. These Breton roads, the small roads away from the main highways, are very, very rough, and they're not really rolling along as well. It's very difficult to get any kind of moving. This, in fact, looks very much like Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who's going forward. I know you did. You've always been good on your Spanish riders. You can see that was a clever move, though, by the Spanish. This is how he got away. He had a teammate on his wheel there, and as soon as they got to the front of the pack, he sat up and allowed this man to go clear. But I don't think he's too far off the front of the main pack right now.
Very season Kilmer has 2 team winners in the Tour de France. Wonderful performance, and challenges all the way. And now we've got Heras, winner of the Tour of Spain. Rumours, by the way, might move across to Lance Armstrong's side.
That would be an incredible move for the US Postal Service team. And he does still hold a valid contract with the Kelme squad. It's an interesting move for him to move across there. He said that he made those contacts well before the Tour of Spain. He's very interested to ride along Armstrong and learn how to ride time trials. He feels that he would be a much more improved rider riding alongside Armstrong for a couple of years, and maybe then have a crack at winning the Tour de France overall. The main field coming up towards the finishing area, still a huge pack of riders, Phil. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold, and not really a very clever tactical move by the Spanish right now, because they do have a serious challenger for the win in Oscar Pereira, and they need to get themselves pretty much organised at the front of the pack if they're going to pull that leading group of 5 back.
This man proving to be a nice little carrot here now. A nice large carrot actually. Gutierrez. So looking down, riders trying to get away from the front of the pack. Sign writers have been busy. This is an interesting attack. The Polish rider is still taking the pace, trying to keep everybody on their toes. It's a tough one. This isn't going to the Dexky, the Moros rider. He's had a good day. There are 3 riders on the Moros team, made the selection for the Polish team. And I think they've got 8 men on the start line today.
Well, we're definitely wearing a slightly different jersey to the rest of the team now, and I'm not sure that's allowed at the World Championships. He's actually wearing the Polish National Road Racing Champions jersey, and at the World Championships you're supposed to wear the national jersey of your country, but today he's decided to opt for that. He may well find himself getting a slight fine from the Union Cycliste Internationale. He's 2-time national champion of Poland, actually took the time trial championships as well.
Well, the design's the same, it's just the writing on the top alters a bit, so they might get away with that. Anyway, let's go. Gonzalez getting away with nothing here because he's the Gutierrez rather, he's being caught. And now the Italians, this is the team who are now trying to stir things up a bit. They sense it's getting time. Now Di Luca may not be too happy with this.
Surprised to see. I think he just wants to pull the Spanish rider back into the fold right there, a little test of the legs to see how everybody else was going to attack. Gutierrez looks over his shoulder, realises it's all over right now. And it's still the Polish coming to the front. That is Gilly Spruck there moving forward. You can see the blue and pink shorts of the Lambre squad. He too coming forward right now just to show the team that he is there, still in the bike race. But he shouldn't have come off the front like that right now.
Well, that bunch is spinning out rather dramatically now. Gutierrez is showing his resistance, but now it's all over. Now the serious boys are beginning to fire. This looks like being a good lap, and surely it was 3:24 last time around. And that was a 19-minute 35 lap, by the way. Surely now on lap 13, we're going to see that gap come down.
Wow, now starting to come down a little more. Everybody trying to raise the tempo in this main field. But you can always see when it's hurting because riders looking over their shoulders to see if the gaps are appearing in the main field. And they're not right now. There's a couple of Dutch riders moving forward there. Michael Bogard is in the group quite comfortably. There's Scotty Sunderland halfway down the pack. Looking further down the main field. A lot of these riders really are starting to suffer right now.
Yes, this is the crunch period. There's always stages of a World Championship when you have to grit your teeth and hope you survive to come through the other end. And this is one of those periods now, around 180 kilometres covered, some 80 kilometres still to race. They've got to answer the pressure being put on. They're chasing at 5 survivors of 9, and the gap is coming down.
Not coming down very rapidly at the moment though, as Alexander Vinokurov comes to the front here, the rider from Kazakhstan, Olympic silver medalist, a magnificent bike rider. One of a great Kazakhstan international amateur team who raced all over the world and then literally exploded nearly every one of those riders getting a professional contract. You see the pressure now as people move left and right in that front of that spearhead, trying to be near the front but not wanting to put their noses into the wind at the moment.
I don't blame them. Back up to the front runners. Another lap can be ticked off here, reaching the 184 kilometre point. And then the clock will start and we'll see what they've got. That Boscia, Switzerland, quite like the Swiss team colours. As they come through, I like the new Italian colours too. The Luca's wearing those, sat in the back. These riders have been away now since the 60th kilometre, so 120 kilometres in the lead, which is some 70 miles out front, 4 hours 22, as they go out on lap 14.
6 laps remaining. Bouchard's had a pretty reasonable season. He's a young rider with 1 victory to his credit, and that was just a couple of weeks ago in the Hessen-Rundfahrt when he took out the 2nd stage as Austria moved to the front. There in the middle for France is Brochard. There's a Frenchman there on the left-hand side with a slight problem, and that looks very much as if it's Laurent Jalabert got his arm in the air.
Well, now this is a far more serious situation for Jalabert he has. Laurent Brochard going through camera now. He's also right at the sharp end, looking for the move perhaps. This is the area now. You must hope this is there's poor old Jalabert there. They must have a flat tyre.
He has a serious problem. His hand has been up. He's looking over to see if there are any teammates around right now. And I wonder, there's the French team car right at the front of the pack, but this is not the time to have an incident because the pressure is pretty much on at the front of the pack right now. And if he finds himself off the back with a mechanical incident, he's going to have a hard time getting himself back into the race.
Against me here, drive this race on. He's going like a train. It's a bit of a performance for the crowd, I think. This is the start finishing line, but he's going well. Brochard sprinting up on the left of our picture. Trying to join 3 men on the attack. There's the tie up. My goodness me, it's come down this time. 2 minutes, 8 seconds the gap.
It's still been a very long and hard chase, Phil, to pull back from 4.5 minutes to 2 minutes. But I do feel now that we will see the end of that leading group of 5 fairly shortly. Well, another man has climbed into the pits. This is Frédéric Pinault of France. And this is the part of the race now where we can expect more and more riders to pull away from the race. 1 minute 55 seconds is the official time on the board for the 5 riders at the front of the bike race. And still Christophe Moreau is the man really keeping the pressure on. He's the man who's got the most to gain from a situation like this, as well as Danilo De Luca in 2nd position there. De Luca must be just keeping his fingers crossed and hoping there's going to be some tactical manoeuvres in the main field behind, but that doesn't happen in the World Championships. Once you get to the critical part of the race, the hammer really does start to go down, and Brochard is the man putting the hammer down right now. He's going off the front of the pack, Phil, and you can hear the French crowd.
Well, looking at the man who has won the world title in the past, facing all sorts of accusations that he may have won it on drugs. But that's what's coming out of the Festina affair, of which Brochard is very much a part of that. But right now he's trying to redeem himself here as he tries to rip clear of the field. Ideally he wants a small group with him.
Belgians are sending a man up there to try and get onto the tail and look like Nico Martin moving forward. It isn't in fact Nico Martin, it's one of the other Belgian riders. That's Michael van Eycken who's got across. And he's not a rider we see an awful lot of on the international circuit. The man I feel they're working for today must be André Schmeel. And at the back of the pack we're hearing over race radio that there is a problem with Laurent Jalabert.
Okay, well, let myself get close.
Well, that's a real shame. The question is, he's going to be very unlucky because the hammer has gone down right at the moment he slid off the back of the field. We're now on to lap 14 here, 185 kilometres covered for the main field. The leaders just a little bit further ahead, but not by much now. They're probably inside 2 minutes now after this flurry of attacks.
Tell you what, the hammer is really down right now. Everybody is trying to get off the front. Everybody is trying to form the counter-attack in pursuit of those 5 leaders at the moment. Their advantage has come down pretty rapidly. It was at one time 4.5 minutes. It's now well inside of 2 minutes. And the speed is obviously different in the main field. You can see the difference in the speed. These riders, Phil, now are approaching 50 kilometres an hour. And this lap, if they keep this pressure on, is going to be pretty close to the fastest so far.
The impetus is slipping just a bit. After that flurry of attacks has been brought back to heel, the riders looking for who's going to move next. The lap time itself was not great, 19:35 followed by a 19:41. So nothing approaching the 18:09 done when the original break went away on lap 4.
Christophe Moreau leading them into the finishing straight. There is Danilo De Luca. De Luca's a magnificent bike rider, and there's been some incredible sums of money bandied around to try and pick up this bike rider. Sums of money well in excess of the $1 million per year, and I certainly think that he's going to be a great bike rider. Very cocky for the moment, knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's so dearly wanted the Maglia Rossa in the Giro d'Italia this year. A huge crowd has not though for Danilo De Luca with the green shirt there. It's for Christophe Moreau, the French representative in this leading group of 5.
200 kilometres, give or take a kilometre under the wheels now. And this is looks as though Matej Trump has been left, has he, by the leaders? Gritting his teeth anyway. Spot a bother, he was in the breakaway, but he's in trouble now.
Well, that's a surprise. He may well have had a mechanical incident because he seemed to be riding fairly well there. He's 30 seconds or more in arrears of that leading group of riders.
He must have punctured, we never heard about that, but he must have punctured as he goes into 5 laps to go.
Bit of calm onto the front of the main field right now. But you can notice now the organisation starting to come in from the Italians. A lot of those green shouldered jerseys moving to the front. That's the Italian squad, the new Italian strip. They've got a pretty good role to play here right now because they have Danilo De Luca in the leading group of riders, but they also have Michele Bartoli. Bartoli just on the right-hand side there with the tricolor helmet on that helmet indicating he's the national champion for Italy this year. And he likes this circuit. He said openly when he won the Grand Prix of Kuwait in the month of August that he'd like to come back in a couple of months' time and find himself crowned the world champion. He was a super favourite before the start of the championships, and for the moment he hasn't made a wrong move.
These 3 riders surviving here now, but they're 4 riders, sorry, both shouting sitting on the back of them. I don't really notice Barkley there, Paul. He's still got his top jersey on, his zip up top, and that's something you wouldn't normally see in the World Championship with some 5 laps left to race.
Still pretty cool for the moment there. His teammate Paolo Bettini wears 39 in second position right up against the barriers right now. But the main field slowly but surely starting to reduce in numbers, and it's in the last 2 or 3 laps we'll see riders disappearing from this group. It's still pretty big though for this stage of a World Championship. 5 laps still to go to the finish, and a huge convoy of cars behind the riders. All the major nations are allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships, and the lesser teams are allowed to bring just 8. The defending team, which is in this instance Spain, would have been allowed to start 13 riders here at the World Championships. Milano being the 13th man, and he in fact decided to take his dummy and go home after he was beaten in the individual time trial. But it's a big advantage, and this is all decided on the rankings of the teams in the international field. The UCI ranks all of the countries, and if you finish in the top 6, you're allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships.
Sort of quarter groups ahead of the field of Champ McRae, who had a great ride last year and finished 5th. I think he's the only survivor left in now of the Americans. I think all of the others, there weren't many of them, now out. Antonio Cruz, who also rode in the World Championships. Danny Pate and Fred Rodriguez haven't seen Fred at all, the American champion. But McRae is still certainly the big end of the race.
Pretty close to the front there, wearing 36 is Richard Biron. I wonder what's going through his mind right now as Matthew Gronk has been caught. That leaves just 4 riders at the front of the World Championship right now, and their advantage is coming down all of the time.
I just have a feeling that Gronk did have a flat tyre there, but anyway, it doesn't matter now. He's back in the field. Of the 9 originals, 4 survived. As the race continues to chase them all down. Still with 1 or 2 Belgians there. They are working, of course, for Andre Schmil. Bartley tucked in nicely. How he would like to round up his season with a world title. There he is over to the right, and there he is gone. Where he's gone.
It's pretty pretty close. He's in the first 5 or 6 riders there, just off to the right-hand side. He's keeping himself off the front of the main field right now, but also as close to the front as possible in case there aren't any surprise attacks. Right in the middle there is Axel Merckx in the Belgian jersey, just going off to the left. There he is now with the orange jersey on right now. Big, strong rider, Axel. Looking pretty nervous right now, looking over his shoulder. Probably wants to know the whereabouts of Andre Schmil. What a great season Axel has had. He's brought his dad an awful lot of emotion. A great individual stage victory in the Giro d'Italia, when I could not believe that he would come back after a dramatic crash. And then in the month of June he took the national championships, and it's been a long time since the Belgians have seen the name Merckx right at the top of the leaderboard. And I tell you one thing, they say that Eddie was actually there commentating for Belgian television, and they had to rip the microphone away from him with about 10 kilometers to go.
Well, you know, Merckx followed by Merckx is a pretty sensational thing to happen, because apart from Johan Bouzeo, a couple of flurries by 1 or 2 other riders, there hasn't been much to shout for in Belgium in recent years. The Italians at the minute are doing everything right. They've got all of their players at the front. The Spanish riders are riding in defence of Oscar Freire again. It's an interesting move this. The big guns are firing. The big teams who boast 12 starters are now showing the advantage of having so many riders on the start line.
Well drilled squads coming forward now, getting team tactics, and I do feel that the Spanish really only have one major chance in their rank, and that is the defending champion Oscar Freire, and that would be pretty impressive if he could make it 2 in a row. The last time that was done by Gianni Bugno. It's very rare for a world title to happen twice in succession. The field does look to be reducing in numbers somewhat, and it really is becoming a war of attrition as we rejoin the 4 leaders, and they're looking a little bit more ragged than they did earlier on. This climb, although not very much if you do it just on one occasion, after 5 or 6 hours in the saddle, really does start to become quite a mountain. It feels as if somebody's got a hydraulic jack underneath it and they're lifting it up each time you come around.
Those legs are not going to make it to the finish on these 4 riders, and there's the reason why. 1 minute 10 seconds now, back to the peloton. Robbie Hunter, the latest rider to reach our ears from South Africa, who's now retired.
In fact, although the time gap was just over the 1 minute, I've noticed they're pushing all of the cars out of the gap right now, and these guys know what that means. That's why Marichal there from Belgium is looking over his shoulder. It means once they start pushing all of the cars out of the way, that the gap is coming down pretty rapidly. And the last time check of 1 minute, I think when we pull back, may well only be 30 seconds.
Well, they are on a hill. We haven't found them yet. There they are. Yeah, well, I think you're right. 50 seconds is probably the gap now. They're coming very quickly. And when the capture arrives, as it surely will, then we're going to see a flurry of attacks, I am sure, because there are far too many riders here dreaming of a rainbow jersey right now.
Still a lot of big names in this group. Sergei Ivanov is still there for Russia. Looking a little bit further down the pack, Scotty Sunderland is still in there as well for Australia. Got a quick glimpse of him. This man here is Roberto Laiseca, the man we saw taking the stage victory at the Vuelta a España. Very good bike rider, finished high in the overall rankings as well. Spain on the front, completely organised, trying to pull us back, trying to keep a large group together for their man, the defending champion Oscar Freire.
Richard Virenque is also there now, centre left of our picture, and still looking pretty cool here. 54 seconds, so that wasn't a bad guess by us, was it, as they now start to close in. This is going to be a most interesting move here now.
Evgeny Spruk, Polish rider on the right hand side. He now has to ride very close to the front of the pack after all of the work that was done by his teammates to pull back that advantage, which at one time was 4.5 minutes. Virenque looking over to see where everybody else is. There is Andre Schmeel a little further back in the light blue jersey of the Belgians. And if we can have a look further down the field, we'll get a chance to see if if Laurent Jalabert managed to get himself back into the main field. There is Oscar Freire, if they're wearing number 1 there, pretty close to the front of the pack. Magnificent bike rider, defending champion, and looking very seriously as a major contender here to take the win twice.
The only Aussie left in the race, I think now. Scott Sunderland is right up there as well. Andre Tappy, he's got a point to prove. Max Chandry still going through there. There's still 2 of the 3 British riders in this race. The one didn't start, by the way. John Tanner and Charlie Regalia, sorry, Max Chandry and Charlie Regalia are the 2 riders left in this race, and they're both up there too.
Looking down that long main field there, I didn't catch much of a sign of Laurent Jalabert, but it's very easy to hide in the main pack. 4 leaders over the top of the climb now, starting to organise themselves just a little bit. Marichal is the man in first place. Danilo De Luca's face not giving anything away right now, but I think he realises he's had his chance of glory at the World Championships. It's been a major help for the Italians, but basically
Okay,
these
so
4 riders, as the pace picks up towards the end,
dropping further and further back.
Probably spat out of the back.
But it's still been a superb
In the
ride.
race.
Over 100 miles in the lead now for those 4 survivors of the 9 who escaped originally, as again the Italians now trying to take control and trying desperately now to reduce that lead. Often wonder, Paul, why Italians are chasing an Italian.
I think they've realised now that the race is over. They realise that the fact is those 4 riders have been in the breakaway situation for a long time. Maybe the word has come back that in fact Danilo De Luca is not in excellent form. He's not certainly going to win. And the Italians feel that this is the moment they really need to pull out. This is Michele Bartoli, El Cazzo, the cat they call him. He's coming out of the front of the pack right now. He knows this course. This is where he won the Grand Prix of Plouay. And this is the first major serious attack of the race.
Well, Bartoli now trying to rip this field to shreds here as we go into the closing laps of the event. Still De Luca up in the front. He'll be not happy at the thought the Italians are throwing their best men at the race now to reduce that lead, but we are inside a minute, well inside a minute now to those leaders. We say bye-bye to Plouay again as we move out on these closing laps of the World Championship.
That attack the Italian in 3rd position there is Davide Rebellin. Michael Bogard is there in the orange. Not quite sure what Michele wants. Come on boys, let's get working. He looks over his shoulder to see what sort of damage has been done. Not nearly enough for the moment. There's still an awful lot of bike riders still in contact.
Well, the thing was, I didn't see Schmeel making that break, so there was no reason for the Belgian riders to start working there. And besides, Bartoli is not cajoling everybody into
I would end up finishing in the 20s.
Strong enough to say no thanks.
When he looks over his shoulder here, he sees that they've got the gap here, and he's saying go, 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 because we have a gap, but nobody else wants to. The Belgian orders are obviously there, and you can see that they're not going to work at all unless Andre Schmeel is in the front split of riders. A general regrouping once again happening in this bike race, but that was a pretty serious attack there by Michele Bartoli.
Yes, it's one of those cases, I wish the camera was at the back of the race, because I'm quite sure we lost a few riders with that flurry of activity.
Absolutely. Many riders would have been put under pressure there, but they need to keep this pressure on over the top, otherwise riders will recover. They have a slight gap over the rest of the field right now as Paolo Bettini comes forward to insist and accelerate. A lot of Mappé riders in this Italian selection, but they haven't split the main field right now, so there will be 1 or 2 riders at the back suffering, but there's still around about 60 riders in this group.
All coming back together again. It's left the Italians now to drive on all of the time.
Maximilian Chandry riding pretty much to the front. Very much in the autumn of his career now, Max, but still having, I reckon, a pretty good season. He was so close to getting himself a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year. He then was selected for the Great Britain team for the Olympic Games.
What?
Here,
this is no longer a race.
Riding very well to the front of the pack of the World Championships.
All I'm doing this ride for now is just to get the elevation.
Farmland around Plouay as the field now work out how they can bridge a gap of some 35 seconds. It's not much more than that to the leaders. And they're all having a go now. The Swiss rider's getting his reaction, and this looks to me like Andre Schmeel. Now they're going to have to react to this one.
Schmil looking very strong. He's dedicated the whole latter half of his season to this World Championship right now, and that really has caught the Italians hopping. The Italians looking over their shoulders now. They want to organise the chase at the front, but they need to chase down pretty rapidly. I can't really get an ID on the Swiss rider in there, but that is definitely Andre Schmil. And they haven't got very much of an advantage over the pack, but they are coming now to the fairly technical part of the course, so this is a possibility to open up the gap.
Well, I feel that the message will soon spread down and Schmil is getting a bit active now. That peloton still low, very unwieldy, quite large. As you back up to the leaders, but now it's all over. The leaders are the main field, and all of a sudden they've wiped it all out. And after more than 100 miles in the lead, the World Championship is again up for grabs.
First man to make the junction there is Andre Schmil, but the main field are not really very far behind at the moment. And over the next few laps, Bill, every time we hit that climb up through the finishing straight in Plouay, there will be attacks. They will try to force the small group of riders off the front. They're sitting up right now. This is a moment, a lull. Having caught the four leaders, everybody's trying to re-ascertain the tactics, who they need to launch forward onto the attack. But certainly Andre Schmil there in the middle of the picture, announcing the colours. He's in form and wants to take out the win here.
Well, he's a frisky man at this stage of any race. 2.5 laps still to go. And anybody in with a shout now, and quite unusually for the World Championship, there's a lot of big teams with a lot of men left at the sharp end of this race. The Italians, the Spanish, the French, the top Belgians are still there as well. This is the corner that's caught so many people off guard, but it looks as though they're coming round it safely again.
Still Danilo De Luca there on the front. He will, I would think, drift back a little bit. Now this is the rear of the pack. Now this is rather interesting here, because the man we're looking at right now is in fact Laurent Jalabert, who's riding himself into the pits. He was having serious difficulty there before, Phil, and he's now climbing off. Right up there alongside him is Gilles Bouvard. So that's a blow for the French, and I'm sure it's very much a psychological blow for Laurent Jalabert because of the worry of whether or not he has a contract for next season.
Yes, it wasn't quite what he had in his mind, I don't think, but there we are. That's the way it goes. This is now an attack by Nicky Eversole. I think it is. It might be Piet Zeberg, was it?
Piet Zeberg it was, the brother of Marcus Zeberg. A very good bike rider. These two guys normally spend their season riding for the Rabobank team. Marcus Zeberg, if it does come down to a large group sprint at the end, is another man who has a serious chance of taking out a victory. This is the move by Zeberg. The Italian's controlling the front of the main pack, but he's decided he's going to go out, and it's always going to be on this slope up through the finishing straight towards the summit of the climb outside of Plouay.
Well, we've had some wet days this week, but we've seen some excellent bike racing, I have to say. And how wonderful it was to see Mari Holden win the gold medal in the time trial, beating Jenny Longo, a rider she'd never beaten until this year. She beat her in the Olympics to the silver and in the Worlds to the gold.
26 kilometres to go. Zeberg hasn't really got much of an advantage over the main field, but look how easy Andre Schmil looks there, Phil. He looks over his shoulder to look at the faces of the other bike riders in this event here and moves forward just to make sure that he's at the front of the pack. I think this man is in excellent form today. In about 5th or 6th position there in the multicoloured jersey with the red and blue sleeves is Maximilien Chiandri. On the right in the orange is Mikkel Bogert. And that group now has seriously been reduced in numbers because of all those accelerations. But what a crowd on the finishing line.
Fabulous atmosphere here as Max Shanley for Britain, and here he is right on the front now. He's a man for championships, bronze medal in the Olympic Games 4 years ago in Atlanta, and wants to see if anybody's going to give him a hand here. Michael Bogart is the rider in the orange Dutch colours, but there's a little bit of a truce just been called for the minute at least.
Well, Chiandri started off the season very well with a win in a stage race in South Africa at the Vodacom Rapport Tour. But I think more importantly for him, Phil, was the win that he got in the Tour of Lazio just before the Olympic Games. Brochard now on the left-hand side, accelerating, trying to get himself off the front of the pack. A big bike rider, very popular in France, but still got that black cloud over his head because of his involvement with that Festina affair.
So Laurent Brochard, he might well be the team leader of the French now, because there aren't that many of them left. Richard Laurent is in there somewhere. But apart from that, I don't think we've got many people left in the race.
That move was countered by Gianni Farzane, the Italian rider in the middle there, the Bape rider. As Spain moves forward. One of these bike riders now can feel the crunch of this Blue A circuit, a very difficult circuit. And especially when you bear in mind that we're racing in excess of 45 kilometers an hour. Michele Bartoli there in 6th place, still looking for the move. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold over this field.
A big bunch is just strung out, but they're all coming back, you see. Holland on the attack in a minute. And again, that long thin line, the Italian flag waving quite high now because they'll get more and more confident with the riders they've got left in this race. They surely have got the players to do work, and this is going to be the start of it now because Bartoli's going again. Looks to see who's followed him. I can't see, it might be Schmiel, I can't quite see behind him. I think it is.
It is Schmiel. Schmiel is right there. These two riders marking each other very closely, but Chiandri riding well too there in 3rd position. The Italians still in great numbers in this group, Bill, and that is their advantage. If they see the right combination forming at the front, they can have 2 or 3 riders just sit up and let the gap go.
Oh, look how far ahead the leader is.
Beginning to test the water now to see who is the strong man. That's a very typical Bartoli attack, that. As fast as he can go to see who followed before he continues the pressure. He saw the wrong man on his wheel, Andre Schmiel, so he stopped up and back in the field. That field is a very tenacious bunch today. It hasn't really thinned out as Max Chiandri's got control of the head now.
Chiandri looking very cool. He shouldn't be
There's no way
like
somebody
this.
can have such a big breakaway.
He doesn't have any team support at the moment. He has to ride
Against
his own race.
a couple of groups.
Maybe thinking about moving on to a top squad. I think this is pretty funny. I'm Max Chiandri riding for Great Britain all on my own.
Unless the weight is like
Michele Bartoli goes again, but look at
60
that.
kilos.
Right on his wheel there is Andre Schmiel.
You won't be laughing now. He had a little joke, I think, with Andre Schmiel.
Well, yeah, I'll say it's like 120.
But Bartoli thinks, well, this isn't worth it. Obviously, Andre's marking him now. So it's a freewheel again.
And you've got like a 400 FTP.
It's strange as these guys are beginning to get worried about the fact they're not able to open up a breakaway situation. This is still a very large group of riders for this stage in the World Championships. And maybe the circuit here in Blue A is not quite difficult enough to split the race to pieces. Schmiel now on the attack, being covered here by Spain, but there will be a major reaction behind, and that must certainly come from the Italians. This group very much staying together. As they get closer to the finish, Phil, I'm wondering if we might see a very large group come down to the line here, because nobody so far has been able to get very much more than 10 or 15 meters off the front of this main pack. There are still a couple of the big teams with a large number of representatives present, which means they'll always be able to organize the chase unless exactly the right combination goes off the front. But looking down there, it's a very big pack.
It is very big, but I'm always full of admiration for the big stars like Andre Schmiel and Michele Bartoli, always willing to attack and test the water, even though there are so many riders there, having more or less a free ride toward the finish. The big names of cycling never afraid to have a go and see what happens.
Belgium's still got quite a number of representatives in the group here. Axel Merckx moving to the front of the pack right now. This is a tricky part of the course. Next time they come up to the line, they will face 1 lap to go to the finish.
So right on the front, he was having a chat with his team car, where he was putting his racing jersey, so his microphone is. All back together again, time for a drink.
It's Axel Merckx in 2nd place there. The Swiss also pretty much at the front. Merckx sliding down through the room, probably will go and have a quick word with Andre Schmiel. Almost 38 years of age, Schmiel, and still super competitive in these one-day races. Kelly Barton, I think next time we come to the finishing straight up through Blue A, we'll try and launch the attack again. I don't think that the climb is quite hard enough. This is Lucas Shinto on the front. The super domestique, a great friend of Maximilian Chiandri's. He will ride his heart out for the team, the Squadra Azzurra right now.
I saw Lucas Shinto win the Tour of Vancouver a couple of years ago. And that really was the only win of note he's ever had. It was a big surprise, but he rode so well. There's the long thin line through beautiful French countryside in the west of France. As we course through Brittany now, these are wonderful roads to train on or just to cycle on. If you ever want a holiday, go to Brittany, but you'll find the roads are never flat and the hills are often short and steep.
Goraz Stangelaj in 4th position, the Slovenian rider. We saw him win the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic last year. That's Axel Merckx there, riding pretty much to the front. Had a very good Olympic road race, did Axel. But I think today, really playing the card of Andre Schmil. Schmil in excellent condition. Swiss rider close to the front there was Mauro Gianetti, wearing number 18. But it's a long, thin line, and still, I think, quite a few riders in this group that have got pretty fresh legs right now.
Bettini setting the pace. Merckx, for us, is a man of the big day, the big events. He always rises to the occasion, and he's right there again. I'm sure Father Eddie will be watching this with great interest now. The Italians are playing all of their cards right now, and they're not going anywhere, as Paolo Bettini sets the pace now.
Just caught a glimpse of Richard Biron. He's around about 20th place in the group at the moment, still very much a contender for the last lap here, because it may well be we'll find ourselves with a strange break going off the front when we come up to the final ascent with Blue. Shinto deciding that as far as he's concerned, he has no hope at all of winning the event, but he does have a hope that Michele Bartoli can take the glory for Italy. Bartoli, before the start of this race, Phil, the super favourites to take out the win. Magnificent win at the Grand Prix of Plouay. Said he loved this circuit. He rode very well in the Olympic road race. He just missed out on that move when Jan Ullrich got away with his teammate Andreas Kloden. And although he chased for an awful long time with his teammate Paolo Bettini, they were never able quite to make the junction. So if he can get the world title here, that would be a super event.
First place on this race is
Shinto sitting
cheating.
behind. He drives on continually, doesn't even look over his shoulder for any help. He just pulls this race through, goes wide to the left-hander. Fabulous riding, never afraid to work. He's not thinking of the world title. I remember Stephen Roach doing this for Sean Kelly in Vilac in '87. At the end of the day, it was Roach who had to take out the title for Ireland.
Looking as if there are a few riders gone missing from that grid right now. Looking down there, but you still see Brochard and Richard Biron pretty much to the back of this pack. Not very much, yes, it is. Axel Merckx going off the front. This is a slight attack by Axel, moving forward off the front of the pack, but it looks to me as though it was Gianni Parazane moving forward.
We're climbing up the track towards the finishing line. You should hear the bell this time. And Axel Merckx has turned around the tactics a little bit by launching that attack.
Feel the pain right now, looking down there. Number 1 is still in this group as well.
John McRae, the American, a man for the World Championships. He rode a great Giro d'Italia as well. These are the survivors now. There's an awful lot of them.
There's an awful lot starting to have sore legs too. There's a little bit of a gap appearing at the back of the main field. Look at the face of this man though. Second in the recent Paris Tours. The winner of the Tour of Flanders. Magnificent move. Everybody thought the race was over when this man leapt off the front and held on by fractions of a second to win.
Yes, that was a great ride. Now, it's Italy again launching an attack.
Shipkin Scruff is right in the action there in 4th position in the white jersey with a red stripe down the middle. The Italian rider on the front right now is Sergio Barbaro, who rides for the Lamprey squad normally. Another move coming, that looks like El Gatto. That looks very much like Michele Bartoli, very low down over the front end of the machine. This may well be the move. This is the move by Michele Bartoli, but look at the reaction. Andre Schmil.
Veritable scramble behind. Now Schmil has marked Bartoli throughout this race, clearly nailed him down as the number 1 favourite along with Andre Schmil. And every time he's made a move, he's cruised over that gap. He's just cruised over it, and Bartoli will just say, oh, not you again. As the reaction has come from the field, this will hurt. But Michele Bartoli, in his sprinting style he has, stays low on the bars. He looks across the
We'll jump off of that for a moment.
I'm not sure if Merckx is back in the pack.
Because I'm going to
He's back in the pack
connect
now.
with the other half.
Field right now is Frederic Guédon, but it's the Spaniards who are reacting. Moving forward, Spain has decided now is the time. That looks very much like Oscar Ferreira, who's coming forward right now. This is the front of the main field, and I don't think Michele Bartoli will be too happy with the fact that Andre Schmil came across there, but he really didn't have the power to open up the gap. And Scotty Sunderland going through there in about 10th position.
He's ridden a
I
very
really want to see.
now as Scott Sunderland. Never been far from the front, but never been on the front. Michele Bartoli is beginning to lose
What's going
his
on with
temper
that
now.
first place
Everywhere he
race,
goes, he
Lisa?
follows, but doesn't assist in the chase because Schmil is a man for the late attack and it's too early.
True Italian temper coming through right now. Bartoli thought that was the move that was going to ride into a lone victory here at the World Championships. But how easy it was, Phil, that Andre Schmiel rode across there, and that acceleration by the main field is forming a rather large group at the front. They're split into 3 groups right now, with more even further back. But they're all sweeping across the road right now, and I think it's all going to come back together once again.
Well, I have to say, if Schmiel did throw his hat in the ring here, that bunch would be cracked up all over the place. And then it would be a race of 2 or 3 men. But one rider who we've consistently seen up here is the guy in the orange there, Michael Bogart. A good performance by him today, doing the world of good. He had a couple of bad seasons.
Certainly has. We saw him as a major contender for a high placing in the Tour de France, and he certainly hasn't lived up to that over the last couple of years.
This must be Michael Anderson of Sweden, sure, isn't it?
Michael Anderson is still in the group. This is one of the Ukrainian riders, I think, pretty close to the front of the pack right now. Merckx on the left-hand side. Merckx looking very good. He's not the kind of rider you want to allow to get off the front.
Axel Merckx come back to the front again now. Bettini dives across and scrambles as best he can. Rider sitting in the back there, 130. That is Igor Pagacci, the Moldavian rider. That's a country that Andre Schmiel used to be a member of. He's gone to Belgium now, and this is the Belgian Axel Merckx on the attack. Axel knows when to attack. He has to attack and finish alone. He's not the world's best sprinter, but he is, remember his stage win this year in the Giro d'Italia. He took it well, coming back to the breakaway and then going straight past them and winning the stage. And he's going now, and he's going to go at a good time.
This is a good time because there's
Okay, so the leader,
Trinolio,
is 3 kilometres in front of second place.
At the right time, but there was a reaction coming from the Swiss team on the front of the main field. But if Axel can get himself 15 or 20 seconds, I think the way the race is developing right now, he may well be able to move on that advantage, because there are so many riders in the pack still watching each other.
Well, the crowd still cheer. Belgium
He's looking to do at 4 points, 4 to 5, what kilo.
As Merckx has got this little gap now. He had the legs to open it, now has got the legs to stay away. No immediate counter-attack here. It's the Spanish who are having to drive on behind. I think Schmiel at this moment would be rather happy that Merckx has gone clear.
He'll take some pressure off him. He's sitting in that group. And you know, over the last couple of kilometres, there are 1 or 2 riders have disappeared off the back of this group, but it is still a very large group. It's the Spanish on the front in second position there, Gianni Farazin, still looking very comfortable there, was Andre Schmiel in the group. Merckx's face is really a picture of pain and anguish at the moment. He hasn't really opened up much of an advantage over the ground.
Coming up to the bell though, just 1 lap to go of the 19 remains. Britain and America have 1 representative each in that rather diminishing bunch now. Max Chandry and Chan McRae are the 2 riders. There's the bell. Just under 6 hours in the saddle, and a massive crowd here, giving a lovely atmosphere in Fleury. And the French still have a chance. There off to the left of our picture is Richard Baron. Rochard is in here somewhere as well.
Gianni Farazin is the Italian on the front, and this is a very strange situation. Farazin today riding for Italy. Normally he rides on the same team as Axel Merckx, and that is the Mapei squad. He's putting the pressure on right now, but Axel is not going to lay down arms very easily. If he could just keep this pressure on for another kilometre or so, he may well just break the back of the chase. But the Italians, Phil, are still in very strong numbers, and they will organise themselves at the front of this pack and try and pull him back.
For those of you who remember Dan Eddy racing as I do, then at this point in the race, if Eddy was clear, the rest of the field would have let him go, because they would have had no answer to an attack from Eddy Merckx at this stage of a World Championship event. Not quite the same with the son Axel. He's not got the talent of his dad, but he's certainly got the guts, and he's always willing to have a go. And he's got a little gap now, and he's 13 kilometres from a gold medal.
I'll tell you one thing that Eddy Merckx cannot believe is how hard his son works. He's always amazed at the work that Axel puts in to get himself to this level of the sport. And with a name like Merckx on your shoulders, it is not an easy thing to do, but he wears it and carries it with a hell of a lot of pride. I've seen him at training camps, Phil, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do weight training and build himself up before going out for a bike ride with the rest of the team.
I can't believe you've seen it, Paul. Somebody must have told you. You've never driven at 6 o'clock.
No, I was coming home at the time.
Well, I'm afraid for Axel, it's almost over here. It's the Spanish who've done the damage, and let's not forget that Oscar Freire is still in there. The man who won the title last year as a surprise, now a totally changed man 12 months on, and the team's still working for him. 12.5 kilometres to go.
Great move, great attack by Axel, but you can see it's Spain who really believe that they've got the winner in their midst, because Oscar Freire is still in this group here. He is one of the fastest sprinters on the block so far this season. The green jersey there moving forward into about 10th place is the Slovenian rider Gores Stangelai, and another attack coming off the front of the main field. Again, this looks like Italy on the attack, trying to split this race into pieces, and Axel slipping further back. This is Davide Rebellin on the front. Even Rebellin today, Phil, has decided that he too will work for the team leader of the Squadra Azzurri, the Italian team today, Michele Bartoli. This is what it looks like at the back of the pack, and this is the place you do not want to be.
Rebellin in the race is a kind of consolation prize when they wouldn't let him ride the Olympic Games to put Pantani in. And he's got good form as David Rebellin, and he's working very hard now at the front of this race. There he is. The crowd are going beside themselves. There's Scott Sunderland, that white jersey. Now that would be a turn-up if he landed the big one.
Absolutely, what a win that would be for Scotty Sunderland after the career that he's had. It has had so many ups and downs. He nearly lost his life in a dramatic crash where he was run over by the team car of Case Green. Strangely enough, Case Green had been his team manager on the previous season. At the back of the pack, though, France are not really looking all of that good in a race that's on their own territory. And the man we looked at there, Jean-Cyril Robin, was a former medalist of the World Championships just 12 months ago.
Indeed he was. Now we've got Switzerland driving at the front. These are now the final selection of this year's World Championship. Got off to a slow start. They allowed a breakaway of 9 to run for most of the race. And now the real stars of the race have thrown everything they've got into the attacks, and they've been monitored and marshalled and put back in the pack.
Sixth position there is Oscar Freire. He must be feeling pretty confident right now. The outgoing world champion is just hoping that this group will stay together, because he is the sprinter of the group. The others, I think, have got to try and slip away from this event, because he is another attack. Schmiel, again, this man will not give up. Been reproached so many times in his career as being a follower, but he's certainly not doing that now.
I was about to say, if you're a betting person who likes a flutter, go out and guess which kilometre Schmiel will attack, and he's done it already. This is a huge effort. He's gone early for my money, because he's gone with about 11 kilometres to go here, and he's got the hills still to come. It might be a good psychological time to go, because they may think he's gone too early.
Well, that's what they said in the Tour of Flanders, if you remember, when he rode off the front, that nobody's going to attack that far from the end in front of a large group. He did that and held a 10-15 second advantage all the way down to the finish. He now has around about 4 or 5 second advantage, but the pressure is on in that main field, Phil. It's a big long line, and I would say if we got down there a little closer, we'd see a Spanish jersey on the front.
Well, you know, Andre Schmiel has made no secret of the fact he was training for this. He turned his back on the Olympic Games to ride the World Championship. He still had a target of the World Cup, which he is the defending holder. This is the attack. With a bit of a playback here. The Spanish riders all looking at him, but not having the legs to reach him. Now they're trying to settle in here with a bit of work being done by Beltran.
Serious names we're used to hearing at races like the Tour de France and the Vuelta a España, but Spain getting themselves organised, and they still have a large number of riders in this group. 3 Spanish riders moving to the front right now, Phil, to organise the chase. They want to pull Andre Schmiel back into the fold, because they will then try to set up the sprint victory for Oscar Freire. This, though, is an incredible move by Andre Schmiel, approaching 38 years of age, and he's still got the guts and the determination to go out and race. His excuse for that is that he turned professional very late in life. He was a member of the Soviet Union team that went all over the world in the days of amateurs and professionals, and he turned professional very late on in life, but still has the thrill and the drive to go out on the attack. And you know what? I think he may well have hit them right.
Well. His best ever position in the World Championship was 6th. He got that a long time ago, 7 years ago in fact, but he's been a man of the single-day races. Holds that corner tight. He should have taken a wider sweep, but nevertheless he accelerates away again. This is his big move now, Andre Schmiel. He's seen his teammate Merckx try and fail. Now he's committed himself to the action here. There's not a long way to go, but it is still long if you're holding off the best in the world.
Still only around about 100 metres. There he is. It doesn't seem like very far, but for the moment they're having a hard time nailing down that gap. The Spanish team are the ones who've taken the responsibility on the front of the pack. Michele Bartoli has not been able to get off the front of this group, so I think they've decided to lay down arms for the moment and wait till they get a little closer to the finish. But Spain are in the driving seat right now. In the middle of that pack is Oscar Ferreira. There on the far side is the Italian Farizane. But this man, Phil, is really going for it. It's a do-or-die effort right now. He has not got a second chance.
The head of the race, the crowd's now conspicuous by their absence. The majority heading down for the finish line to see the race come in. Andre Schmil, the grand favourite, alongside Michele Bartoli before the start.